don't know what it is, it's a concert with Preserve Santa. I mean, can't you read? But anyway, everybody, and I didn't know this, but there was a gentleman that donated, I took donations, our band took donations for Sub for Santa, and we got sponsors. And the one man said, I don't know who to sponsor. And I asked if we could sponsor the city. He said, and they said, yeah. That way the city could get free tickets. So anyway, that's where the tickets came from. He said he won't let me announce his name or tell anybody, but I think I will that night. I don't care what he says. I already got his money. So, but anyway, that's just, so you can trust me, but only this far.
I say that, be careful.
Red lights.
Yeah.
The red lights.
Good point.
I'm on. So anyway, you're invited. If you need more tickets, just come in. My wife's taking the ticket show ahead. We're not, I got enough sponsors, so I'm not worried about ticket money. I'm more worried about just people coming and having tickets.
And they can make donations that night if they want.
Oh yeah, of course that. You can go Venmo. Hey, Venmo.
Okay.
I know. And you can go with credit card, and we even take cash. Okay, so just so you know. But it goes to the victims advocate here for Layton City, and they're good. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Oh, I have one more thing. It's not really my thing, but I know Councilmember Thomas, you were able to go to the youth council's retreat. They had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Right.
But I was able to stop by and just visit with them for a little bit, and they're really excited, and their advisors were there and were happy that, you know, somebody could be there. So just wanted to give an update on that, because the youth council, they're doing great things, and Dave already told us all the great things
they get, and they've grown. You know, they're kind of, they limit it. I didn't know they did that, but they limit it to so many, and they're
18.
They're right at there. Yeah. So
They do still have 4 spots.
yeah, they had a couple spots left. I remember when we were talking.
Yeah.
And they do fun stuff. You know.
They contribute a lot,
Yeah,
volunteer-wise, on
yeah.
a lot of different programs going on.
Yeah, they do that, but they also, the thing that I didn't realize, the whole purpose of this is to try and learn city government. So if you get the opportunity to use the couple that are assigned to you for anything, I mean, they just.
Well, there's a new group now, right? Because we worked
Yeah.
with the last group, but
Yeah.
I think now that there's a new group, new school year, we probably ought to look at
I'll ask her.
rotating
Yeah,
and
but
bringing
yeah,
them
oh,
to
oh,
council
yeah.
meeting and that, so that they get.
The
that
majority of
exposure.
them are gone from last time, so.
There's none returning. They do have
Oh,
some.
yeah,
they do.
there's maybe 6 returnees, whatever. Yeah.
Just yesterday, I ran into one of the kids from a few years ago
Yeah.
at Chevron, and I looked at him and he'd grown since I'd seen him. He was like, Mom, I'm leaving on a mission.
Yeah.
He looked like an adult.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
It was cool. It was just,
By the way,
Interesting.
that was me.
that was
Yeah,
you. It's just a cool program, because I had probably only talked to him maybe once or twice when I walked in. It's one of those people you look
Yeah.
at and like, they know you and you're like,
Yeah, I went to the football game, same
but then I'm
thing.
like, I remember.
Yeah.
Kid grabbed me and goes, Dave. He says, no, did you say Dave? Yeah, I said, Dave. I go, yeah, you got me. Who are you? I'm Chamberlain, you know, in the meeting downstairs. Oh, yeah, how you doing? I remember you now. Yeah.
Good
Okay.
program.
Anyone else? Anything you can share with us? Okay. Let's go ahead then on, I think Chad's are you going to be doing the miscellaneous project updates, or Alex?
Yeah, just
Both of
need to
you?
briefly, yeah, these gentlemen will provide information that
Oh, we get the trifecta going. Mr. Jackson too.
That means there's more than one.
Juan, you feel left out over there?
No, I'm fine. I think this turned out. So we wanted to provide a couple of verbal updates on issues that citizens have raised in the past for the city council. The first is the discussion about the installation of the crosswalk down on Torrential Park West. We've made some progress on that. We've also ran into some obstacles, but we've corresponded with the residents, the three gentlemen that came. I've had several personal conversations with one gentleman in particular, and we're in a good place and they understand the background, but we want to provide an update there. And then the second we wanted to touch on was some of the land movement issues that we've had. Chadwick Farms was one that's largely being handled by the property owner. We can speak a little bit to that, and the other one is up in Country Hollow. And some of you, I think, in the past have been contacted. We've engaged Joe Firm that we use as our third-party geotechnical engineer to review subdivision plans and so forth. We engaged them, have engaged them several months ago to look at that for a lot of reasons, primarily because there's a K Street irrigation, which is now Layton City irrigation line that runs through that area. We had anticipated having the written report back actually a little while ago. They've had some personnel changes and unexpected departures from some of their project managers that has delayed that a little bit. But so we're hopeful of having it tonight. But what we'd like to do is just give a little bit of a preliminary review of what has been represented to us about what the situation is there. It's not anything formal or final on it, but I know that several of you, or some of you at least, had been pretty regularly being contacted by some of the property owners of that area. We've tried to intercede there where we can and have them reach out to us as well, so we provide information. So those are the two primarily, and we're happy to try to respond to any questions. So let's do the 2200 West first.
Yeah, so if you recall, we received some grant money from UDOT to be able to build a crosswalk. It'll be a mid-block crossing right here in this area so that it connects to the crosswalk on the north side of Ellison Park. We just received the survey back for that Tuesday this week, so we've got the survey now from our surveyor, so we're in the process of getting this designed. We need to design the curb gutter sidewalk and then finish the road widening up to this point where then we'll have it's called an RRFB, stands for Rectangular Rapid Flashing Beacon if you want to know all the geek terminology, but it's the ones with the flashing lights like we have over here on Wasatch. So that will be installed. The hiccup that we've run into is the funding source with UDOT is still there, but depending on their calendar year, fiscal year, it may not come available until next year for us. So we're trying to.
What's next year mean?
Like, I think possibly as late as July. So we're trying to work on some things to see what we can do. We want to talk to their program managers and see if we can get this thing ready, shovel ready to start. Then we want to talk to them about possibly seeing if they can shift some money around for us to let us go sooner, or even if we could pay for it and then reimburse us the portion that they have committed to. So we want to work on that, but part of the agreement with them is that we need to get it designed and have them sign off on the design as well. So we felt like it was prudent to push forward, get that design ready to go, and we'll continue those conversations about the funding and the timing of it as we get closer to being ready to actually buy the equipment and get a contractor on board. So.
Is there any right-of-way acquisition there?
There is no right-of-way acquisition that we can see. We do own the right-of-way. It's being used as a parking shoulder right now, but from what we can tell, there is no right-of-way acquisition. It's just a matter of surveying and make sure that we can build the improvements properly and tie them back into those people's yards so that they have functional driveways and things like that. So.
Will they, I can see part of it, will they gain land because you're gonna put a sidewalk?
Sidewalk will tie onto this one right here, so it'll stay
Oh, it'll stay
right where their improvements are. Luckily,
Yeah.
they haven't encroached too far into the right of way. I think there's a little bit of gravel and some,
Right.
some plants that are growing there, but nothing major that we can see. It's more just, we gotta get the design, make sure it ties together,
Sure.
and then the road will be full width in that section as well. So.
Can you zoom back out? So, I know the concern is obviously the road, the citizens want it down
Yeah, they want it done.
there, which doesn't, you know, I understand the safety part of that, but we move it up, it makes sense to go straight, but future development, it looks like there's a stub street that's only maybe, what, 100 yards up? Or 100
Yeah.
feet up?
So.
What would that do to that crossing then?
We would have to evaluate it once we figure out what the design is, because this will either need to swing up and tie into this road, or it will need to swing down and tie in here so that it's a proper distance away from that intersection. So we do have a minimum separation that those need to be if they're not aligned.
So it's just won't go straight across.
It can't go straight across because
Right.
it would land too close to that intersection.
Right.
So at future development time, we would, obviously the sidewalk, curb and gutter would continue north, and then we would maybe have to make some adjustments once we see which way the design for that road goes.
Okay.
And we would take care of that, so.
What would determine if that was to be made a cul-de-sac? How do you make that determination? I mean, I know what it looks like already, but.
This cul-de-sac here, really the issue would be they need to have so many connection points on this road, and I think just from a land use perspective, that road needs to tie through because they don't have enough connections into the neighborhoods.
But the one at the top looks like it could maybe go straight through, so
Yeah.
would that make a difference if that one did go straight through?
Yeah, possibly. My thought is this might be deep enough that they might need this to connect through so they could try and run a cul-de-sac up the middle or a road up the middle similar to this section here. It just all depends on what the landowners decide to do in the future.
Right.
The commitment's already there from the state.
Yeah.
Going into a new fiscal year, there's no risk of losing that.
No, it's actually, I think the way that the program was set up, the gentleman that's administering that for us had thought that it was available now, but then he got back looking at the program and he said, oh no, it's for this next fiscal year. So it's there, the money's there, it's just a matter of if we can see if there's a way for them to move it forward for us or not. I don't know if they can do that, but occasionally there is that opportunity, so we want to take advantage of that, but it shouldn't stop us from getting the design done and getting everything ready to go.
There's no issue, Gary, on like you're not, the property owner will eventually sell, but there's no expectation that that road's gonna connect straight, so, because we're gonna basically hinder their development plan, because it's either gonna go up or it's gonna go, or north, it's gonna go south. But there's no expectation that that road has to go straight, right? We're making we're putting that crosswalk there, which means that the developer, whenever, or the homeowner, whenever they sell that parcel of land, is gonna want to develop, but probably gonna be fewer units, we would imagine, I'm guessing. Then there's no issues legally from that. For us,
The crosswalk is not driving where the road goes.
Right.
I want to make that clear. It's really the standard of the streets and where the
Right.
roads have to tie together so that they're safe from a traffic.
Just
safety
because 800
standpoint.
North was built first.
Yeah,
Yeah, even if there was no crosswalk built there, they
yeah,
would have to meet the same engineering standards, they'd have to go north or
Okay.
south.
yeah.
and that's because of 800 North.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the proximity there.
Okay, that helps, thank you.
Does the school district own any of them?
Own any,
No?
no, there's
No.
no school
It's all
district.
Robertson.
Oh, yeah, it's part of Rockville, whoever now
Whatever,
paid
yeah.
that close attention.
Because I know one time they were looking at that property. Oh, yeah, Chris was working, but anyway, I just wanted to go about it. Okay.
Okay,
All right. Do you want to talk Hidden Hollow next, or do you want to talk
What
Chadwick?
would do Chadwick quickly, just, there again, we haven't been too much involved with it other than from an inspection perspective, the homeowners have been working on it, which is good, because that's pretty why
Yeah.
the issue was created. But,
Vanderbilt?
okay,
Yeah, Chadwick Farms is predominantly complete, the mitigation work on that. They've done a series of lifts of soil. They actually got some of that off of the 89 project, so they were able to utilize some of that ground. It's just off that just north of the arrows where that slide occurred.
This property, right?
So that has been predominantly completed. The next steps will be for them to put some revegetation, some stabilization fabric on there to keep the hydro seeding in place. They'll also be piping there was some drainage structures put in the slide itself to dewater it, so that'll be piped down to the bottom of the slope. So you'll see that work done in the next few weeks. They expect this to be complete, revegetated everything within 2 to 3 weeks. One thing to note, if you look at that slide from Gentile, the property directly to the west was impacted by that slide. They declined to participate in that mitigation work. So you'll see that there's a pretty incised cut still there where that slide took place. So, you know, our guess is that they didn't feel like any of their structures were threatened by that. They've declined to participate in that work. So we're going to monitor that.
Is it all, there's no vegetation on it?
There's no vegetation on that incised
Where they're at?
cut. Yeah, so there will be revegetated on the Hicks site. That will be hydroseeded. Yeah. So we would hope that would, you know, naturally revegetate, but they have not participated in that.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed as they were filling, it seemed like they put some fill in, and then it was almost like a cloth barrier, and then they put fill over the top. What is that?
It's a geo cloth. It's a stabilization type cloth they put in there to stabilize. So they would put it in as lifts. So that's essentially a depth of soil they would put in, and then they would put that geotextile fabric on top of that, and then another lift, and that offers additional stabilization.
So that cloth then just, I guess, I was amazed at looking at that, because I was like, okay, I
It
understand
helps
it, but
prevent
I
the
wasn't
dirt
sure
from
how it
wanting to
works.
try and shear, and so it allows the soil to have more strength to it than what it would normally have just as it's compacted back onto the hill because of the slope.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, I just wanted
Yeah.
to understand.
Is there a way to check the other lots going down? Some sort of a,
Just to the east of this was Sheldon Kilpack's lot, and it did have some issues with, and it was again piped drainage that was occurring. They've fixed that problem. They've taken the pipes and now run them to different locations. So he actually also put a pipe down into the hollow as well to dewater that. But we've asked those property owners. We're hoping that we've found the ones that did this without any authorization. Here's hoping, right? So, yeah.
what a mess.
Yeah, and so the rest of the council knows this was, the reason this slid was because of an unauthorized pipe that was running back onto the slope that during our high, it was that last storm, really that last big storm that the water inundated that. And it was kind of that last straw that sent that sliding down the slope, so.
How old are these homes? How long have they been there?
They're not super old, you know the year on that?
I was gonna say early
98,
2000s.
Yeah, I said 2000.
The other part of that was there were some spoils from some of those, the court and the sport court and the pool that were put back there that were never compacted correctly, and so that also contributed to that slide. Hobbs, we want to talk about Hobbs real quick, Alex. That one's one you can see from 193, but we could just talk about that briefly. This is on, again, a private property. It is visible from 193. They've been watching it all summer. They have had it's about right there. They've had a geotechnical professional look at it. It appears that this was just a superficial slide, just caused by the moisture. It didn't go very deep. There's no threat to any structure, so they've determined that they can let this one just naturally revegetate. It's already got a little bit of vegetation on it over the summer. Hasn't been any. They've been watching it very closely. Hasn't been any additional sliding, so they hope this one's was just a kind of a naturally occurring one. They did have a little bit of an addition because somebody's sprinkler pipe broke property to the east, so they had a little bit of an additional slide because it hit that bare ground. They've got that sprinkler pipe fixed, and like I said, this was deemed to be a superficial, just natural, it's unstable soil in that area, and just they feel it'll just revegetate on its own. You can see that from Apple Tree and from some of those other places over on 193.
Go ahead a bit to Country Hollow now. So as you know, Country Hollow subdivision, there was the landslide we were notified of on Easter this past spring came out, and this home has been affected by that. The geotechnical engineer we've hired, Geostrata, has been working on this report, and so some of the preliminary findings that they have, they've gone back through all of the data that's available. This has been an active identified landslide since sometime in the 60s. The best data they have was 1978 was the first time they documented movement out here. So, and then they said that there were existing scarps that they've identified through some of the aerial photos. They've noted that the multiple reports they reviewed from different people over the years that it slid in the 80s and in the 90s. Basically, every time there's a very wet year, this hill has had some issues on it. The most recent LiDAR, which is a laser contouring thing, the LiDAR data shows that these scarps were there back in the 2018 LiDAR that they used to kind of map some of these areas, and they can identify some drainage ditch that had been dug right here to try and prevent water from these hills or these properties coming down onto them as well. And there's some active scarps now that have formed, and they've gone up into the property here to the north. But he said basically this has been a known kind of marginally, the terminology he used was marginally stable with a safety factor of 1, which means that the safety factor of 1 is like, yeah, you put water on it, any kind of substantial water, it's kind of,
It's gonna have problems.
yeah, it could have problems. So what he did say is basically the amount of moisture that's on this hillside through this winter and with all the snow and everything basically reactivated a landslide that was moving or that has moved over the years. And so the basic recommendation, and we can get into more of the details once we get the final report from him, but the recommendation that they would have for us right now is to monitor this quarterly. They put in close to 30, 40 survey points, monuments that we've actually taken survey points of, and their recommendation is to monitor those quarterly and see if we're seeing active movement maybe during the seasonal, wet times of the year, or if it's moving every quarter regardless of what the weather's doing, things like that. A further step you could take is to add what's called a piezometer and inclinometer, which would give you a little bit more active or accurate information on what the slide's doing. That's something we would want to assess once we get the full report from them. And then they would recommend that once we get the report, we had evaluated that we would do actual preliminary engineering to determine whether a dewatering system would be prudent or not in the hill. Basically really big French drains that you'd go dig into the hillside, and they could do some analysis on the sensitivity of the hillside, whether or not that dewatering system would actually be effective or not in trying to stabilize this hillside.
You think it
So,
might even be detrimental?
well, that's part of what the analysis would need to have.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but right now, he's saying that every geotech report since the 70s,
Since whenever.
when they were writing these, they all recommended a dewater system, especially when they did the report on this this western piece that's up on the top of the hill.
Yeah.
There was a report done that said if you want to try and build on this, you would only build on the kind of western side of it, and you would have to put in a pretty substantial dewatering system along the north and the south, or east, excuse me, to
Does any of the
make sure
new
that works.
construction drain into?
Yeah, that's part of the problem. Some of the images we have actually show that some of this water here is actually ponding on the tops of these yards.
Yeah.
Another recommendation, even though it's not the root cause of the issue, would be to
Right.
try and remove as much water from the surface as we could, so it would be a possibility to try and take the water that's coming off this small piece of the road and any surrounding drainage from the houses that gets onto that road, and get that off of there, as well as put in a system that would catch any water from these homes that drain over the hill as
So
well. So
like a big French drain would be nice, but if everything says that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and that's where the discussion needs to be more deep and looked into is,
Yeah,
if you do it, will it do anything? Because it's a possibility, you put it in, that it may not even improve the stability.
yeah. The house now, the one is it condemned?
Yeah, this house is uninhabitable.
So it's,
Condemned.
What about
does
the one
that
to the
mean it's
south?
coming down?
We haven't made final determinations
Oh,
on
I
that.
don't know what condemned means.
Yeah, it just, there's nobody living in it right
Can't
now.
live in it.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, does that mean you tear the house down or you fix it or, you know?
Those are decisions the property owners have to make. I think they're hoping to get some information from this
Oh, I
report as
see.
well,
I
because
see.
we're doing it more because we have the big water line that goes through there, but
Right,
hopefully some of this information will help them make decisions. I would guess that the cost to try and save that house would be pretty substantial to where it may not be cost effective, but those are decisions that they would have to
So
make.
my question, how, if this has been moving since the 60s, how are those houses, how are they approved to be built? These ones on this side?
The ones over here,
How is, I mean,
those are discussions we need to have now that we're getting this information, but I think you need to remember that we didn't have a sensitive lands ordinance for a really long time. I don't know, Gary, when,
so that's the,
but that's maybe part of it is the sensitive lands. I think it was the late 90s that it came into play, and so that may be part of it.
so there was no ordinance or no requirement, I guess, for the, when you build those homes to say, hey, we're on this hill, it might move.
Homes in that area were identified in geotechnical reports, yes. I mean, one up slope from there had a specific geotechnical report that said it needs to be built on piers, which it was. And the report said, you can expect your backyard to slide, essentially. It said this report is just, this mitigation is only to protect your home, but not to protect that backyard because it will slide. In fact, the recommendation was that shouldn't be landscaped in that report. So,
Wow.
because of that slide. So there were also some reports that were applicable to these properties, and they still decided to build even with the knowledge that was an active slide up there, so.
So I have a question then, knowing what we're dealing with, and this is a little premature, but
So,
a lot of the complaints we got was our snow plow was taking a lot of the snow there. So I guess this next year we gotta make sure we don't do that, so we're not contributing to the issue.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into that and see what we need to do. We have dug a trench through here so that the water will drain down to the storm drain box that sits right here. So we just wanna make sure that any water that does get on the site is drained away properly so that it's not running down the hillside.
There's water right here all the time. I don't know if that's
Yeah. We have
part
some,
of the, is that?
there's some active springs and, yeah,
Okay,
constantly
like
running.
always running.
We've got a storm drain project up in this cul-de-sac as well to try and pick up some active springs. And yeah, it's a challenging area.
Least resistance.
So we anticipate be able to talk about that report with the geotech, and then we'll get with Alex and then move forward with whatever he decides we want to.
but we would never allow any building on. I shouldn't say never, but.
Yeah, the mitigation for this would be substantial, and I think that's what's prevented some of these other sites from trying to develop. I know the Bank of Utah owns this piece that has active landslides and
Yeah.
a spring in it, and so they've been talking to us about what they should do with the ground and things, but I know they know that the bank knows that it's really not something they want to build on.
Right, well, yeah, that's, you know, the concern is don't add insult to injury
Yeah.
type thing, you know.
Yeah,
There've been several inquiries the last several years by existing property owners or potential property owners to develop property, and the city's never entertained that.
Good.
Because of
Yeah,
the knowledge about these
oh, yeah,
these
Yeah.
issues. And so that may still, and I think one thing, just clarification, from the staff's perspective at least, it's just fair to say that when we talk about the dewatering and mitigation, we're primarily focused on the protection of the pipeline, irrigation pipe, because all this is private property. The city doesn't have any ownership or any control of the property. So hopefully, whatever comes out of in terms of solutions will be a shared solution, and property owners and landowners and others will be involved in that as well. But the idea from the city is not to come in and step in and take care of everybody's issue. We would. We've never done that historically. There's other issues like this in the community or potential issues with it. But hopefully with the information and everything, we can all come together to say what's the best approach that protects us, protects them.
And the geotech, in speaking with him, said that although the small amount of water that does come off this road is contributing to the overall water that's on the site, the vast majority of the water is from the surface water that gets out of this and any surrounding areas. And so his recommendation is not, if you pipe this road away, then it's going to solve the issue. It's just any water that you can't control, you probably should try to control, because there's so much of this area that you can't control because it just comes down everywhere.
So all those big homes up on that hill, those are post the sensitive lands. And did you say they were contributing to the problem because of the pooling of the water on
when we have the drone footage that we show, there are pools of water in the backyards. There was a drainage ditch at one time that was in here back in 2018. They saw it in the LiDAR. We didn't necessarily see that when we were up there, so I don't know if somebody else came in after the fact and removed that, but the city essentially dug that back in when we came up there after the Easter event. And so that's kind of where it sits right now, is we believe the water that drains to that flat spot on the top will hit that ditch and go into our storm drain pipe. But we do want to make sure that once we've got this report, we can evaluate what needs to be done to make sure we're not adding insult to injury, I guess is the best way to put it. So.
We've had some discussion with that bottom property, the 22222 we own. And I'm trying to remember what the map was. So how far does the sensitive lands extend? Is like, I want to say it was like halfway into the backyard.
It comes, there's a static setback line somewhere in here.
Okay.
And it continues all the way down through this area. If you zoom out and the Case Creek, actual stream, that's basically where all of this goes. The geotech has shown me maps that you can kind of see that both sides of this drainage are that way, and unfortunately the geology in this area is not the best, and so that's kind of what everybody in this area has to deal with.
We've got some questions. I know I've had questions about the approval of those homes up there. If there's kind of contingent consequences for the people on the other side of the hill, if that was if those were causally connected, the approval of the big homes on the west side, if that was one of the reasons that we had acceleration of that.
Yeah, and from what the geotech's pointing out, this is not, he's not saying there's one thing that he can see that's been happening since 1978 was the first documented movement, but they could see previously in some aerial photos. We didn't have great technology back then, but they knew that sometime in the 60s there was even some potential issues.
Because these homes are really recent.
Yeah, these are fairly recent. Yeah.
So when you did the geotech study on this lower property, if I remember correctly, didn't we have a study that included all of them and one that was just for that property? So we have numbers that identify where they should or should not have been, and the only one that was out of compliance at the time was really this bottom one.
These
right?
two, this area right here,
Area.
So now we just put in a bunch of stakes or whatever, and
There's
Check them
quite
out.
a few survey stakes out here, and our surveyor has been out to mark those, and then we'll have him go back here in a few months and get some more readings, hopefully before the snow comes, and then we'll have to wait until spring again probably unless the
See
snow
what's
is
going
not
on.
covering up. But yeah, we want to monitor it, make sure that it's, from the standpoint of the pipe, we need to know if the pipe's, if the ground's shifting, it's gonna take that pipe with it,
Yeah.
it shears the pipe, and we've got an 18-inch pipe full of water running down on everything that
Which is,
just
makes
adds
it
more
worse.
problems. So we want to make sure that on top of, you know, the impact of possible homes.
Just, if the pipe shifts, what do you do? You gotta dig it up and leave the land away from it, or type thing?
Yeah, we'd
Like
have
a
to,
big ditch with a big pipe going through it?
yeah, you'd have to dig it back up and reinstall it.
Oh, you have to well.
Yeah, you'd have to reinstall it, but you would have to make sure you're not installing it in an active movement
Yeah,
area.
right, yeah.
Where's the pipeline from? Where's it
So
going?
it comes out of Hobbs Reservoir,
Ah.
and it runs down Hobbs Reservoir down here, and then it goes through this area and out
It
to,
hits the creek.
no, it goes down Antelope Drive,
Oh, does it?
and then it feeds down Church Street and Antelope.
Huh?
Yeah, it's a big pipeline, it's the main feed out of the reservoir.
We're gonna connect that with Andy Adams, is that what the,
Yeah, on Church Street, we'll connect those two.
okay. Sorry.
It is a fused pipe, so it doesn't have physical joints, it's a welded fused pipe, so
Right.
it's pretty strong stuff, but that doesn't mean you still wanna have. a bunch
Isn't
of
that stuff plastic? Or-
Yeah, it's
I mean, it's real thick.
polyethylene. Yeah.
Is it the same stuff they ran out here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I
In
saw
the park here,
in the park,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the same stuff.
Because that'll give a little bit.
Yeah, there's some
I mean, you know,
flexibility in it, but
It's not cement.
you never wanna have a lot of
Well,
forces
no,
on
you
it,
don't
but
want any. Yeah, that's true.
it's- So,
Okay. I think we're
Thank
good,
you.
right?
Yeah, thanks.
For all the info.
That's good.
This is a fun tour.
Yeah. Okay, so that wraps up our miscellaneous projects then.
All the problems.
Let's go ahead and move on to item number 3, which is about amending the title for parking restrictions. I think Gary's gonna take this one, right?
Yes. So, ordinance enforcement, there's two parking provisions in the code. One deals specifically with zoning, and what you do on your property, and the other one deals with on-street, on-public street parking. What we're dealing with here is just solely the public street parking. Our ordinance enforcement officers came in a little while ago, and they said, we've got a real problem, because we've got individuals that come and park their trailers on the street, disconnect them from the vehicle, and then we've got a 24-hour provision. And so they know they've got a 24-hour provision, so they'll move it to the next location, just around the corner, and then they'll move it back again, and then they'll move it a little bit further down the street, but they're not loading or unloading. It's obvious that they're not, because they're in different locations. And so they asked that we take the 24-hour provision off, because it actually inhibits their enforcement. And then they can look at whether or not they truly are loading or unloading, and it's not restricted by the 24-hour period, which they can change in a moment by just driving around the corner or somewhere else in the cul-de-sac. So
Just by
So does
moving.
that,
just by moving it.
does that then open it up that one could interpret it like, I could have it there for 48 hours
No,
or longer?
they've got to be loading or unloading.
Right, but if it takes them 3 days to load,
No,
you don't think we'd be challenged that way?
we can enforce that. We can enforce, if they're not actively loading or unloading, they can document that. That's the nice thing, if they go out and knock on the door.
How many instances of, is this just one
Uh,
resident that's trying to game the system and?
I see it. I'm gonna have a call.
It's not just travel trailers either, it's trailers with, moving trailers, that type of thing that you put on the street, move it within 24 hours, and we move it to another location.
So people don't have a place to park it, so
And
the owner probably doesn't have an area to park it permanently, so they're just,
they could park it in their driveway, that's legal. They don't have it, but they can't park it on the front lawn, the zoning ordinance doesn't allow them to do that, for an extended period of time.
you can wash it on the front lawn, and we had that conversation.
Yeah.
a
So
few years
what they would do, the way that they would enforce this is they would go out and talk to the individual. And then they come back, asking you to come back the next day, and if the trailer's still there, it may be 2 days, it may take a couple of days to
Sure.
come back, but the bottom line is, they have more enforcement capability, but the other way, they have no enforcement capability. After the 24 hours, they mark the tire, it goes somewhere else. They mark the tire, it goes somewhere else. That doesn't work very well. And so, they worked with us, and I think we're better off with this solution. And most of the time, they give warnings if people do respond. But every once in a while, you get somebody that just does not. We've got a couple, we know who they are pretty much, who just don't care. They don't respond, they don't leave it.
Did this ordinance start with 24 hours or was it added later?
It started, I think, you know what, I don't know the history of it, whether it had 24 hours to begin with. I can't remember. It's back in the 90s that we put it in play. So, it has become a problem. People have more trailers than they had before. I don't know whether it's a function of, just our society or what it is.
So in the ordinance, the definition of travel vehicles would be like this, trailer, like a semi-trailer, or like you said, a moving vehicle.
It's a moving vehicle.
Okay, and those are the only regulations we're only talking about those.
That's it.
And you mentioned actively loading and unloading, but there's no verbiage of actively in this ordinance. So to the mayor's point, if someone is saying, hey, it's gonna take me 3 days to load and unload this, there's not, I don't know if there's teeth in that, but if you put actively in there, then maybe that implies, I don't know, but that's just.
I think it says immediate.
Yeah, I do remember reading that. It did say
And
immediate.
what the definition of immediate is.
Well, we can pretty much, I can prosecute something where they take 3 days and things still sitting out there. That's not immediate loading in those. But it takes a day, 24 hours, maybe even a couple of days. If it's something that they're getting ready for and ready to go. And the key is our people need to contact them, need to make a contact,
So
and then document that contact. That helps us in prosecuting the case. So,
I'm gonna bring up the question, what if, like I know a lot of people that own trailers, and perhaps they need to do some maintenance on the trailer or repair some items that's gonna take them a few days. How do we address that?
they can do that, but they need to pull the trailer into the driveway and not fix it out on the street. Like,
Okay,
if you're repairing your trailer, you don't want them repairing it out on the street, do you?
well,
If you do,
9 times out of
that's
10,
okay.
it's inside of the trailer that,
Not the street I live on.
Oh.
I don't even want to walk on it.
So repairing something inside the trailer?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I know that there's people, especially, it's unfortunate, but all the new trailers are made very inexpensively, and there's a lot of stuff that breaks on them.
So that would all go to whether or not they're active with it. They're unloading or unloading the trailer. If they're involved in that. If they're not, they need to pull it into the driveway and work on it in there. If they're getting ready to go on a trip reasonably, our officers are really, really flexible. We're leaving for the long weekend and, family's coming up. We're gonna load the trailer today and tomorrow and then we're taking it
Yeah.
on. That's okay.
That's one of the reasons they contact. I mean, the officers have to contact them so they know what's going on.
Yeah, the officers talk to them, their intention is not to issue citations.
Right.
There's no profit motive, there's anything. But as Gary's saying, at this point, that for those individuals who are trying to game the system, there's no way to address that. So it creates, and a lot of times these are generated by complaints coming out of the neighborhood that they're blocking visibility, they're blocking traffic. There's a family, wonderful family, I know them well, down near the elementary school. that at any given day will have between 6 and 8 trailers and old vehicles, et cetera, and they move them around like clockwork. And so, but it really impedes, if you try to drive them, because they've got them on both sides of the road, and I'm not involved in this, but it impedes traffic, so it's under any reasonable use, like say that the officers will go out and make contact and say, what is, your trailer's here, what is the situation? And if people say, I need to be here for, I'm sure for 2 days, this is what their situation is, they'll say, okay, that's fine, we'll come back after 2 days and check on it. So they're not taking a hard line on it, but when they have somebody they know is doing that, creating an issue in the neighborhood, we feel at least they need to have some ability to address that, because it generates inconvenience well beyond the boundaries of their property. They're probably on a public street, both for pedestrians and for, you got school children in the area where I'm at. You know,
Sure.
cars on both sides, you got kids walking to school, it creates an unsafe situation, but
Isn't there's, just think like it's because we've got a few in the, we're doing it, and we know they're doing it. Couldn't there be something else we could do and add something instead of taking that away from the rest of the residents? Seems like there are good people who follow the rules, and because we've got a couple, I don't know what a couple means, I don't know what the numbers are, but from your anecdotes, it's, well, now let's take it from everybody else. That doesn't seem, it's an easy fix, but it seems like we're taking that away from a lot of people who would just otherwise just obey the law.
It sounds like it's not so much taking anything away. I mean, I don't think so. It seems like this makes it more broad, like it's more at the discretion, because the officers are contacted and they can ask, like, hey, what are you doing? How long are you going to be? Whereas before it was 24 hours, and if it's not 24 hours, or it's over 24 hours, then, you know, so the people who are gaming were just moving around the corner. But this seems like it's more, there's more flexibility, so that if somebody is doing something they need a little bit more time, if they need the 24 hours, oh yeah, it's gonna be, I'll be out of here tomorrow, if not. But I mean, I understand your point, like.
It's not like the code enforcement's running around trying to, not policing this.
No.
It's complaint, once again, it's a complaint-based thing, and if that's not on, if the 24-hour thing isn't on there, then the game is gone, and then you allow the code enforcement to go as they do, and that makes sense.
Well, it doesn't force them into a corner either. If you've got a neighbor that, like, 24 hours.
Oh, for sure.
You come out and cite him. He's had their 24 hours. Now they can go in and they can say, you know, when are you loading it? When we finished? And then you can go report to the neighbor that they're loading or unloading. They've given us a reasonable period of time, 2 to 3 days, you know, or a day, or whatever it happens to be. And we're okay with that. Our intent is not to make you look like a criminal because there are trailers on the street, but more to be able to give the code enforcement flexibility to be able to not be cornered by the complainant or cornered by the person who's purposely violating it. So this kind of gives them a little more flexibility is what we can.
So basically, we're backing our code enforcement officers and allowing them to use good judgment on our behalf.
Yeah.
So I agree with taking the 24 hours off, but more so because it takes me usually more than 24 hours to get my family's worth of stuff in a trailer, you know. If we're going away for 10 days or a week, it might take us 3-4 days, or unless we take a day off of work prior to get everything loaded, so. If the flexibility is there, and that's why I wondered what the definition of immediate is. If 2-3 days is reasonable, then I'm okay with that.
You're gonna have to go a fair amount of time before they, you know, if you legitimately are loading or unloading for vacation. For them.
Yeah, and I agree with taking this off to find the bad players and find a way to weed those out.
Okay. We good?
Thanks, Carrie.
Yes, thank you. All right, let's go on to item number 4. Mr. Jackson, will present this item. Postpone agreement between Lake City and the Yale Moulton Truck.
Okay, so I can pull up a map again here. So up here on the Fairfield Road, 2417 North Fairfield, if this will load for me. I think I'm gonna be over here. We have some property and it's, if I turn on the APZ, it might help a little bit. So the hatching here is the APZ. So the Ute Knowlton family, or the Ute and Gail Knowlton Trust owns some property here on Fairfield Road. They're splitting off the agricultural ground and selling that, but they're from the home. So they're creating a 2-lot subdivision. Typically, in cases like this, when you create subdivisions, we require improvements to be finished and installed. Back in the day when Fairfield Road was widened and constructed, we didn't put sidewalk on that west side of the road, so there's just curb and gutter. They've agreed to sign a postponement agreement that says once 75% of that road is basically not agricultural use anymore, that they would put in that sidewalk, or when something happens to develop and trigger that requirement to have the sidewalk put in. So we don't do very many of these postponement agreements, but we saw this one was not in place, and they were doing something that would allow us to request this. So that's why we're proposing this for the council to consider placing this postponement agreement on here for the future.
So this was initiated by the city?
Yeah, when they came in to do the parcel split is when we asked them if they would be willing to do that. We aren't sure if they're planning to develop that. We know with the compatible use plan that it's probably unlikely that ag use will be changed anytime soon, but we thought it would be prudent so that in the future there would be something in place in case it ever did. So.
And so this postponement just prevents them from having to put in a sidewalk?
Yeah, instead of having to put it in if it
How much for the sidewalk for that one house?
Right now.
Yeah.
From one end?
And just to make sure everybody knows, the compatible lands plan is the base.
Yeah.
You know, making sure the uses with the base are compatible so that they can continue their operations and we can continue ours.
So they are the purchaser.
I'm not sure who's buying it. I just know that they're splitting the ground. They have several parcels in this family they're doing the same thing with, so there may be one more that comes your way, but this one in particular is the first one that they've taken care of. So.
Just wonder if someone else is coming.
I don't know, we had that group that came through that was willing to buy a lot of that ground so that it would not be developed. So, you know, it could be them.
I know, like I say, I know this family has multiple parcels of land in the city and they're doing very similar things to all of them, so I'm not sure that they have an immediate whatever. It's just, I think the state stuff has come to a head where they're splitting off the homes from these ag parcels, and some of them are in the APZ, some of them aren't. So.
Can you show me Love Lane?
What lane is this road up here?
That road right there?
Yeah, it's actually in the county. So all of this stuff in the blue is Davis County still. Some of it's owned by the Air Force up here.
There's a pit bull that is on the road.
Jesus,
Bike riders.
Pit bull that lives on that road.
Good dog. Good dog.
Fast dog.
And that's the 75% just from the agreement is between Love Lane and Antelope.
Here to Antelope, yeah.
Thank you.
And we do have sidewalk on the east side of the road, so we don't anticipate it unless there is a lot of development on that west side that the sidewalk would really be a high demand item.
Can it be developed? I think that's the overarching question though, because.
That's
Not
Under the
residential.
impression that it's not,
Residentially.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
residential development.
not residentially.
Okay, that's, I was gonna say, I knew that this has been a topic, and that's why I want to make sure that we all understood.
Single home on there.
With the easements, they can't put any residential.
It's just who's ever there is
If they buy
grandfathered
the
in.
easements.
What's that?
If they buy.
No, even with the existing easements, there's no residential allowed.
I was gonna say.
There you go.
I think we.
They purchased all the
learned about this.
residential areas.
All right, yeah.
All righty,
Okay.
that's good. Okay, thank you on that one.
Sure.
You got the next one too.
I do have
Mr.
the
Jackson.
next one, so I'll try and keep this one short as well. I'm gonna hand out a paper to you though, because this map is kind of a little bit hard to see. So here's so with the completion of the 89 project, they're finishing up a lot of the little loose ends. One of the things that we need to finalize with the Department of Transportation is what's called a jurisdictional transfer of the frontage roads. So at the beginning of the project, well, before the project, we've been taking care of the frontage roads that are not essentially contiguous frontage roads, but many of them have been city streets. So with the project, they want to formalize the jurisdictional transfer with the Transportation Board so that everybody is aware of what's going on with that. So you can see on the map, the orange lines are what are being formally considered as the jurisdictional transfer. It includes the east frontage road from Kaysville City, Layton border, all the way up to SR 103. So that would include Valley View Drive, as some of the roads are highlighted are actually existing streets that the city's already maintaining, but they just want to formalize that in this to say, yeah, we acknowledge that, so that the city, as we submit for our Class C road funds, the gas tax money that we have an agreement that, yeah, UDOT's not maintaining that road, the city is, so we can collect those funds. The west frontage road from the Kaysville Lake City boundary all the way up to 193 as well. So that's all of the stuff on the west side of the highway there, as well as Gordon Avenue from the Andy Adams Park all the way to the east frontage road. And it includes the overpass crossing of US 89. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But then also Antelope Drive from the west frontage road to the east frontage road, which includes that crossing, overpass crossing of 89 as well. So that's what's depicted on the orange lines there. Essentially, and Gary can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is already codified in the administrative rules that we have with the state. We take care of the roads anyway, and so we're just making this formal jurisdictional transfer. They're not transferring any fee title of the ground or anything. They're not worried about whether the state owns it or the city owns it. They're just saying, city, you're in charge of managing this and operating it, and you can make decisions on permits for utilities and whatnot, and then you also are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the road, pavement services, the curb gutter, sidewalk, and everything else. So, and let me talk a little bit about the under crossings or the interchange bridge overpass crossings there at Gordon and Antelope. So the rule R918, this is the code section. I'm not going to read it all to you, but basically UDOT's responsible to provide bridge inspections for the bridges themselves. They have to do any major structural rehabilitation to the bridges, the footings, the abutments, all that stuff. The bridge structures essentially stay with UDOT. They would do any deck rehabilitation that needs to be done on those, and then they would maintain retaining walls, drainage under the structure, vegetation along the state route, and then fence maintenance under the structure. And then the city, sorry, this is a little bit smaller because they get a little bit more wordy, but we basically are in charge of routine maintenance, preventive maintenance on the top of the bridge, so the bridge deck surface, the pavement on top of that. It includes deck overlay, seal treatments, deck pothole patching, parapet surface repair and sealing of the bridge joint cleaning and sealing, and drain cleaning and maintenance. So that's typically what happens. If UDOT goes in and does something with the deck, then we would have to agree to maintain the surface of that once they finish up whatever they did on there.
Snow plows.
Yeah, we snow plow it as well because it's city roads. We technically don't snow plow the Oak Hills because that's a state route, but we would snow plow over Gentile and Antelope, or Gordon and Antelope, excuse me. And then we would also be responsible whenever the UDOT Structures Division does a report, we would have to provide them documentation that we did any of the maintenance that they recommended. And if we don't do the maintenance, then they can come to us and say, we're going to do it for you, but we're going to charge you or whatnot. And we just work that out. So, and then we're also responsible for the fences on the top of the structure, vegetation around the structures and the crossing, and then any decorative landscaping above and beyond what the UDOT aesthetic guideline baseline was. And On this one, I don't believe there's anything there, so. That's all I have on those. It's not something that I need like formal action. It was more just to let you know that's what's going on. We will prepare a letter for the mayor, to sign that would go to the transportation board, and then they would formally do this jurisdictional transfer for the whole project. So, is there any questions I can try and answer for you?
Just an oddity, 89, not 89, is the blue
It
line,
makes sense to move, of course, that's that way.
okay,
On the map, yeah.
on the map, and it covers some of the things and some, it's like if you're going down Gordon, it covers both sides of the road except for an opening there. What?
Okay, so there are black lines that
Oh,
show the
black,
roads,
I
and
thought they
the
were-
only blue line, and that's why I printed this, because it's a little bit hard to see. The only blue line is the center line of Highway 89.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those black lines were the actual roads that got constructed with the project.
Right, okay, I thought they were blue.
Okay.
Another problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay,
All right. That's it on those items. We have another item, we need to close our meeting and the mayor's report. Maybe I'll just quickly do the mayor's report, so we can come back out and then report. I will tell you that, out on 2700, the sewer district, stepped up and they're responsible for not repairing, but, joining the, sewer line out there, and once they're done, then they turn it back over to the city, and I know that's a cost of over 300,000, but.
On 32.
32, did I say 22? Okay, yeah, sorry, I meant 3,200, so, that's one of the updates. The other update on the wash action generator landfill. I know I brought this up before, and kind of wanted, just wanted out in the open that they're seriously looking at all kinds of, not all kinds, but, the possibility of recycling countywide, not just citywide. That discussion has taken place, but I've been very good about saying, look, you know what, this is a major decision and I don't want any mandates. We've got to make sure we get the right players in the room and get their feedback. So they met with all the haulers, was able to get their feedback. So now the next step is to take it out to the city managers and the folks here that need to be involved, and I want the council there as well. So those discussions should take place latter September, October-ish. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. So when you see that come through from Nick and Rich, to make sure that's going to be about. And we need feedback. We want to make sure we're making the right decision here, and whether it's right or wrong, we need to know, right? So I just bringing you guys up to date on that, and wanted you to be aware as well.
don't they recycle?
They recycle,
I mean,
yes.
because when we went out there, they,
Yeah,
recycle,
the MERP is what they refer to it as. It does recycle, but they have found that because there are these recycling programs out there as well, and they bring in some clean recycling, they can process it so much faster.
oh, sure.
And the return is so much better. So it's one of those things where it's kind of the right thing to do, and really it's not necessarily all about recycling. It's about protecting that landfill, because it's going to fill up within, if we do nothing, it will fill up within 10 years when we don't have it. Everything's going to have to be transported off. But at least this way, this is a good way to kind of help prolong that life and to look for alternative ways to offset those revenues going forward. But more importantly, it's kind of one of the right things to do as well. And it's got all kinds of statistics as far as what cities have been heavy-handed, those that are not. Luckily, I will tell you, Layton City started out very well in this whole process. We have a 30% rate of people that are recycling, and we're not a heavy hand, right? So I just think that's works well for us, but at the same time, how do you get more people to participate? That's really what it's about.
I know years ago, steam was the big thing from there. Is that ever,
That went away.
that's gone?
That's
So,
gone.
okay.
The recycling
Yeah, I knew they quit it, but I didn't know if it was something that could come back or whatever. So, okay.
All right, well, anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update on that as well. Okay, looks like our last item then is motion to go into a closed door meeting to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water rights or water.
From one end.
And just to make sure everybody knows, the compatible lands plan is the base.
Yeah.
You know, making sure the uses with the base are compatible so that they can continue their operations and we can continue ours.
So they are the purchaser.
I'm not sure who's buying it. I just know that they're splitting the ground. They have several parcels in this family they're doing the same thing with, so there may be one more that comes your way, but this one in particular is the first one that they've taken care of. So.
Just under someone.
I don't know, we had that group that came through that was willing to buy a lot of that ground so that it would not be developed. So, you know, could be them.
I know, like I say, I know this family has multiple parcels of land in the city and they're doing very similar things to all of them, so I'm not sure that they have an immediate whatever. It's just, I think the state stuff has come to a head where they're splitting off the homes from these ag parcels. Some of them are in the APZ, some of them aren't.
Can you show me Love Lane?
Love Lane is this road up here.
That road right there?
Yeah, it's actually in the county. So all of this stuff in the blue is Davis County still. Some of it's owned by the Air Force up here.
Pit bull goes on the road.
Is it like
Jesus,
that
bike
now?
riders.
There's a pit bull that lives on that road.
Good dog. Good dog.
Fast dog.
And that's the 75%, just from the agreement is between Love Lane and Antelope.
Here to Antelope, yeah.
Thank you.
And we do have sidewalk on the east side of the road, so we don't anticipate it unless there is a lot of development on that west side that the sidewalk would really be a high demand.
Can it be developed? I think that's the overarching question, though. Because
That's
Not
under the
residential.
impression that it's not,
residentially.
right?
Can't residential
Not
development.
residentially.
Okay, that's, I was gonna say, I knew that this has been a topic, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we all understood.
Single home on there.
With the easements, they can't put any.
It's just who's ever there is
If they buy
grandfathered
the
in.
easements.
What's that?
If they buy.
No, even with existing easements, there's no residential allowed.
I was gonna say. I think we-
They purchased all the
About this.
residential. areas.
All right, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
good. Thank you on that one. You got the next one too.
I do have
Mr.
the
Jackson?
next one, so I'll try and keep this one short as well. I'm gonna hand out a paper to you though, because this map is kind of a little bit hard to see. So there's 3 comments and then so with the completion of the 89 project, they're finishing up a lot of the little loose ends. One of the things that we need to finalize with the Department of Transportation is what's called a jurisdictional transfer of the frontage roads. So at the beginning of the project, well, before the project, we've been taking care of the frontage roads that are not essentially contiguous frontage roads, but many of them have been city streets. So with the project, they want to formalize the jurisdictional transfer with the Transportation Board so that everybody is aware of what's going on with that. So you can see on the map, the orange lines are what are being formally considered as the jurisdictional transfer. It includes the east frontage road from Kaysville City, Layton border, all the way up to SR 193. So that would include Valley View Drive, is some of the roads are highlighted are actually existing streets that the city's already maintaining, but they just want to formalize that in this to say, yeah, we acknowledge that, so that the city, as we submit for our Class C road funds, the gas tax money that we have an agreement that, yeah, UDOT's not maintaining that road, the city is, so we can collect those funds. The west frontage road from the Kaysville Lake City boundary all the way up to 193 as well. So that's all of the stuff on the west side of the highway there, as well as Gordon Avenue, from Andy Adams Park all the way to the east frontage road. And it includes the overpass crossing of US 89. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But then also Antelope Drive from the west frontage road to east frontage road, which includes that crossing, the overpass crossing of 89 as well. So that's what's depicted on the orange lines there. Essentially, and Gary can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is already codified in the administrative rules that we have with the state. We take care of the roads anyway, and so we're just making this formal jurisdictional transfer. They're not transferring any fee title of the ground or anything. They're not worried about whether the state owns it or the city owns it. They're just saying, city, you're in charge of managing this and operating it, and you can make decisions on permits for utilities and whatnot, and then you also are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the road, pavement services, the curb gutter, sidewalk, and everything else. So, and let me talk a little bit about the under crossings or the interchange bridge overpass crossings there at Gordon and Antelope. So the rule R918, this is the code section. I'm not going to read it all to you, but basically UDOT's responsible to provide bridge inspections for the bridges themselves. They have to do any major structural rehabilitation to the bridges, the footings, the abutments, all that stuff. The bridge structures essentially stay with UDOT. They would do any deck rehabilitation that needs to be done on those, and then they would maintain retaining walls, drainage under the structure, vegetation along the state route, and then fence maintenance under the structure. And then the city, sorry, this is a little bit smaller because they get a little bit more wordy, but we basically are in charge of routine maintenance, preventive maintenance on the top of the bridge, so the bridge deck, surface, the pavement on top of that. It includes deck overlay, seal treatments, deck pothole patching, parapet surface repair and sealing of the bridge, bridge joint cleaning, sealing, drain cleaning, and maintenance. So that's typically what happens. If UDOT goes in and does something with the deck, then we would have to agree to maintain the surface of that once they finish up whatever they did on there.
Snow plows.
Yeah, we snow plow it as well because it's city roads. We technically don't snow plow the Oak Hills because that's a state route, but we would snow plow over Gentile and Antelope, or Gordon and Antelope, excuse me. And then we would also be responsible whenever the UDOT Structures Division does a report, we would have to provide them documentation that we did any of the maintenance that they recommended. And if we don't do the maintenance, then they can come to us and say, we're going to do it for you, but we're going to charge you or whatnot, and we just work that out. So, and then we're also responsible for the fences on the top of the structure, vegetation around the structures and the crossing, and then any decorative landscaping above and beyond what the UDOT aesthetic guideline baseline was. And on this one, I don't believe there's anything there. So that's all I have on those. It's not something that I need like formal action. It was more just to let you know that's what's going on. We will prepare a letter for the mayor, to sign that would go to the transportation board, and then they would formally do this jurisdictional transfer for the whole project. So, is there any questions I can try to answer for you?
Just an oddity, 89, not 89, is the blue
That
line,
makes sense to me, of course, that's that way.
okay,
On the map, yeah.
on the map, and it covers some of the things and some, it's like if you're going down Gordon, it covers both sides of the road except for an opening there. What?
Okay, so there's black lines that
Oh,
show the
black,
roads, and the only blue line, and that's why I printed this because it's a little bit hard to see. The only blue line is the center line of Highway 89.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so those black lines were the actual roads that got constructed with the project.
Right, okay, I thought they were blue.
Okay.
It's not, another problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
All right. That's it on those items. We have another item, we need to close our meeting and the mayor's report. Maybe I'll just quickly do the mayor's report, so I'll come back out and then report. I will tell you that out on 2700, the sewer district has stepped up and they're responsible for fix, not repairing, but, joining the, sewer line out there. And once they're done, then they turn it back over to the city, and I know that's a cost over 300,000, but.
On 32.
32, did I say 22? Okay, I'm sorry, I meant 3,200, so, that's one of the updates. The other update on the Wasatch Integrated. And, I know I brought this up before, and kind of wanted, just wanted out in the open that they're seriously looking at all kinds of, not all kinds, but, the possibility of recycling countywide, not just citywide. That discussion has taken place, but I've been very good about saying, look, you know what, this is a major decision, and I don't want any mandates. We've got to make sure we get the right players in the room and get their feedback. So they met with all the haulers, was able to get their feedback. So now the next step is to take it out to the city managers and the folks here that need to be involved, and I want the council there as well. So those discussions should take place latter September, October-ish. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. So when you see that come through from Nick and Rich, to make sure that's going to be about. And we need feedback. We want to make sure we're making the right decision here, and whether it's right or wrong, we need to know, right? So I just bringing you guys up to date on that. And wanted you to be aware as well.
Don't they recycle?
They recycle,
I mean,
yes.
because when we went out there, they.
Yeah,
So,
the MERP is what they refer to it as. It does recycle, but they have found that because there are these recycling programs out there as well, and they bring in some clean recycling, they can process it so much faster.
Oh, sure.
And the return is so much better. So it's one of those things where it's kind of the right thing to do. And really, it's not necessarily all about recycling. It's about protecting that landfill, because it's going to fill up within, if we do nothing, it will fill up within 10 years when we don't have it. Everything's going to have to be transported off. But at least this way, this is a good way to kind of help prolong that life and to look for alternative ways to offset those revenues going forward. But more importantly, it's kind of one of the right things to do as well. And they've got all kinds of statistics as far as what cities have been heavy-handed, those that are not. Luckily, I will tell you, Layton City started out very well in this whole process. We have a 30% rate of people that are recycling, and we're not a heavy hand, right? So I just think that's works well for us, but at the same time, how do you get more people to participate? That's really what it's about.
This, I know years ago, steam was the big thing from there. Is that ever,
That went away.
that's gone?
That's
So,
gone.
okay.
The recycling.
Yeah, I knew they quit it, but I didn't know if it was something that could come back or whatever. So,
All right, well, anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update on that as well. Okay, looks like our last item then is motion to go into a closed door meeting to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water rights or water.
from one end.
And just to make sure everybody knows, the compatible lands plan is the base.
Yeah.
You know, making sure the uses with the base are compatible so that they can continue their operations and we can continue ours.
So they are the purchaser.
I'm not sure who's buying it. I just know that they're splitting the ground. They have several parcels in this family they're doing the same thing with, so there may be one more that comes your way, but this one in particular is the first one that they've taken care of. So.
Just wonder if someone's.
I don't know, we had that group that came through that was willing to buy a lot of that ground so that it would not be developed. So, you know, could be them.
I know, like I say, I know this family has multiple parcels of land in the city and they're doing very similar things to all of them, so I'm not sure that they have an immediate whatever, it's just, I think the state stuff has come to a head where they're splitting off the homes from these ag parcels. Some of them are in the APZ, some of them aren't.
Can you show me Old Lane?
What lane is this road up here?
That road right there?
Yeah, it's actually in the county. So all of this stuff in the blue is Davis County still. Some of it's owned by Air Force up here.
There's a pit bull that was on the road.
Is it
Like
Pitbull?
that?
Bike riders.
Is it Pitbull that lives on that road?
Good dog. Good dog.
Fast dog.
And that's the 75% just from the agreement is between Love Lane and Antelope.
Here to Antelope, yeah.
Thank you.
And we do have sidewalk on the east side of the road, so we don't anticipate, unless there is a lot of development on that west side, that the sidewalk would really be a high demand item.
Can it be developed? I think that's the overarching question though. Because
That's
Not
under the
residential.
impression it's
Residentially.
not, right?
Can't residential
Not
development.
residentially.
Okay, that's, I was gonna say, I knew that this has been a topic and that's why I wanted to make sure that we all understood.
See the home on there.
With the easements, they can't put any.
It's just who's ever there is
If they buy
grandfathered
the
in.
easements.
What's that?
If they buy.
No, even with existing easements, there's no residential allowed.
I was gonna say.
There you go.
I think we
They purchased all the
learned about
residential
All right, yeah.
this. All right,
Okay.
that's good. Thank you on that one. You have the next one too.
I do have
Mr.
the
Jackson.
next one, so I'll try and keep this one short as well. I'm gonna hand out a paper to you though, because this map is kind of a little bit hard to see. So here's the requirements and then so with the completion of the 89 project, they're finishing up a lot of the little loose ends. One of the things that we need to finalize with the Department of Transportation is what's called a jurisdictional transfer of the frontage roads. So at the beginning of the project, well, before the project, we've been taking care of the frontage roads that are not essentially contiguous frontage roads, but many of them have been city streets. So with the project, they want to formalize the jurisdictional transfer with the Transportation Board so that everybody's aware of what's going on with that. So you can see on the map, the orange lines are what are being formally considered as the jurisdictional transfer. It includes the east frontage road from Kaysville City, Layton border, all the way up to SR 193. So that would include Valley View Drive, as some of the roads are highlighted are actually existing streets that the city's already maintaining, but they just want to formalize that in this to say, yeah, we acknowledge that, so that the city, as we submit for our Class C road funds, the gas tax money that we have an agreement that, yeah, UDOT's not maintaining that road, the city is, so we can collect those funds. The west frontage road from the Kaysville Lake City boundary all the way up to 193 as well. So that's all of the stuff on the west side of the highway there, as well as Gordon Avenue, from Andy Adams Park all the way to the east frontage road. And it includes the overpass crossing of US 89. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But then also Antelope Drive from the west frontage road to east frontage road, which includes that crossing, overpass crossing of 89 as well. So that's what's depicted on the orange lines there. Essentially, and Gary can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is already codified in the administrative rules that we have with the state. We take care of the roads anyway, and so we're just making this formal jurisdictional transfer. They're not transferring any fee title of the ground or anything. They're not worried about whether the state owns it or the city owns it. They're just saying, city, you're in charge of managing this and operating it, and you can make decisions on permits for utilities and whatnot, and then you also are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the road, pavement services, the curb gutter, sidewalk, and everything else. So And let me talk a little bit about the under crossings or the interchange bridge overpass crossings there at Gordon and Antelope. So the rule R918, this is the code section. I'm not going to read it all to you, but basically UDOT's responsible to provide bridge inspections for the bridges themselves. They have to do any major structural rehabilitation to the bridges, the footings, the abutments, all that stuff. The bridge structures essentially stay with UDOT. They would do any deck rehabilitation that needs to be done on those, and then they would maintain retaining walls, drainage under the structure, vegetation along the state route, and then fence maintenance under the structure. And then the city, sorry, this is a little bit smaller because they get a little bit more wordy, but we basically are in charge of routine maintenance, preventive maintenance on the top of the bridge, so the bridge deck, surface, the pavement on top of that. It includes deck overlay, seal treatments, deck pothole patching, parapet surface repair and sealing of the bridge joint cleaning, sealing, and drain cleaning and maintenance. So that's typically what happens. If UDOT goes in and does something with the deck, then we would have to agree to maintain the surface of that once they finish up whatever they did on there.
Snowplows.
Yeah, we snow plow it as well because it's city roads. We technically don't snow plow the Oak Hills because that's a state route, but we would snow plow over Gentile and Antelope, or Gordon and Antelope, excuse me. And then we would also be responsible whenever the UDOT Structures Division does a report, we would have to provide them documentation that we did any of the maintenance that they recommended. And if we don't do the maintenance, then they can come to us and say, we're gonna do it for you, but we're gonna charge you or whatnot, and we just work that out, so. And then we're also responsible for the fences on the top of the structure, vegetation around the structures and the crossing, and then any decorative landscaping above and beyond what the UDOT aesthetic guideline baseline was. And on this one, I don't believe there's anything there, so. That's all I have on those. It's not something that I need like formal action. It was more just to let you know that's what's going on. We will prepare a letter for the mayor, to sign that would go to the transportation board, and then they would formally do this jurisdictional transfer for the whole project. So, is there any questions I can try and answer for you?
Just an oddity that 89, not 89, is the blue line,
Makes sense to me, of course, that's that way.
okay,
On the map, yeah.
on the map. And it covers some of the things and some, it's like if you're going down Gordon, it covers both sides of the road except for an opening there. What?
Okay, so there are black lines that show the roads, and the only blue line, and that's why I printed this because it's a little bit hard to see. The only blue line is the center line of Highway 89.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so those black lines were the actual roads that got constructed with the project.
Right, okay, I thought they were blue.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
All right. That's it on those items. We have another item, we need to close our meeting and the mayor's report. Maybe I'll
Okay, I'm giving fair warning, because I knew Dave was out there.
It's not citizen time yet.
Okay, we good? Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening, September 7th. And Before I get going here, it looks like we have some special guests out here in the audience that I want to identify. It looks like we have a troop or several of our scouts with us. Would one of you want to identify what troop you're from and who's your troop leader?
We are the Silver Rolls from Troop 407.
Okay, thank you for being here. We love to see it. We love to see you out there. Okay, well, as customary with our council meetings, we like to start with a prayer and a pledge, and we take turns on the council to conduct that. And this evening, it is Councilmember Bettina Smith Edmondson who is in charge tonight. So I'm going to turn the time over to her to start.
Thank you, Mayor. So first, we're going to have Luke Jensen from the Scout Troop to come up and lead us in our prayer. And then my kids, Ezekiel and Amaris Edmondson, they're going to come up and lead us in the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank Thee for this day. Thank Thee for everything Thou hast given us. Thank Thee that we could attend this Layton City Council meeting, and please bless us that we'll be able to learn something, and please bless us that we'll be able to all drive home safely. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. All right, kiddos.
Stand me up here.
How rewarding it is to be able to have this type of participation here, one from our scouts and then obviously for our youth. Bettina, you got some beautiful kids there. We appreciate their participation tonight. Okay, council. We do have several sets of minutes here that we need to approve, so I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes, or if anyone has any corrections or changes to the minutes, please say so beforehand.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the Layton City Council work meeting, June 1st, 2023, the Layton City Council work meeting, June 15th, 2023, Layton City Council meeting, June 15th, 2023, City Council meeting, July 26th, 2023, and the City Council meeting, August 17th, 2023.
Okay. Is there a second?
That was July 6th, right? Not 26th.
July 6th, thank you.
Second.
Very good. Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the minutes as written. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to our municipal announcements, and I know a couple of the council members have some events I'd like to share with you, so who would like to go first?
Well, hey,
Okay.
Dave, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
There's a concert for Sub for Santa tomorrow night. No, it's today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Starts 7:30, and it goes to the Victims Advocate, which is a Layton City, Gary, what would you call it? A Layton City program? Yeah, Victims Program. And we do the Sub for Santa, which I'm part of, runs it, the Sub for Santa for them. And so we get all the names, and we don't actually deliver everything. We just wrap it all up. But the one thing that I've seen is that these are people that need things. They leave in the middle of the night with a garbage sack full of whatever they can take. And the Victims Advocate group takes care of them. And so it's been a real kind of a neat thing for us to do. So anyway, that's Saturday night. Come have a good time. That I can guarantee. And starts 7:30 over here at the Layton City Amphitheater, or the Ed Kinley Amphitheater. Thank you.
What's the name of the band?
Midlife Crisis. Okay. Otherwise known as Dave Thomas.
They're actually very good, and they play all eras of music. Let's say that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Do you want to make any announcements tonight? Do you have any? Okay. I know Mr. Tyson Roberts would have some there. Councilman Roberts.
Yeah. Parks and Recreation's been working on some good activities. One family recreation opportunity coming up in a couple weeks, but start getting excited about the park after dark. So bring the family out 7 to 9 p.m. on Friday, September 22nd. So 2 weeks from tomorrow. A lot of outdoor family-friendly activities, games, as well as you can come out and make s'mores. So have dessert as well. So
It's a fun time.
Mayor Petro? I did have one I forgot about. I don't have the date on when when you can sign up, but the active pages that Davis Arts Council does, usually in the October area, October 14th is when they're going to be doing active pages. It's going to be Frankenstein, and these are free programs, but you sign up for them. I believe that sign up is going to open up sometime in September. So I'll have more information next month, but it sells out quickly, and they walk you through the park, and they tell you the story, and they always do this around Halloween time, and they also do it around Christmas. So it's a really fun thing for kids, and then after you go through this active pages experience, they give you a book. So it's a really fun thing that you can keep an eye out for. If you go to davisarts.org, you'll be able to sign up there.
And there may be a special ride appearing at both of those events on behalf of the Layton Rotarians, who will also be selling hot chocolate or root beer, depending on the temperature. Okay.
I want you to announce for me. You're a little more.
I will continue to announce because our next item on our business is going to be a proclamation. However, prior to that, I want you to be aware of some other interesting and educational items that were going to be taking place around the county. September, as you may know, was recognized by Governor Cox as Constitution Awareness Month. And there's been a couple of events already. Last year, we were lucky enough to be able to have the 9/11 event that is put on by the Taylor Foundation, Brent Taylor Foundation. This year, it's going to be held up in Weber County. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, then I would highly recommend that you go there. It's actually opening up this weekend. Right now, they're doing the school tours today and tomorrow, but it is open to the public, so that's something that is very enlightening. But then on September 14th through the 16th, in Bountiful is the Freedom Light Festival. And this is, I have not attended. This is going to be my first year, but I have heard what a fantastic job they do with this. It's a lot of different readings and characters that are in full costume, and they really educate everyone as far as the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and so that's something that you need to be aware of. And then on the 17th, right here in Layton City, up at Layton Christian Academy, or Christian Life Center, I should say, at 7 p.m., there is going to be a concert or a devotional, and the speaker is going to be David Barton. So that's another good event. So I think there's a lot of things here that is coming up. There's going to be another one on the 24th, and then a reading of the Constitution is going to take place in Salt Lake. So this is kind of like statewide, I said, but these are things that are kind of close here to home that I think would be valuable for all of us to kind of participate and help share the awareness of what our freedom is here in this great continent that we live on. So with that, I will see if there's any other announcements.
Just Mayor, thank you. The service events on Saturday. Do you want to mention that?
Well, you can.
No, you're good.
Well, I don't mean to, but I mean, certainly I like to involve everyone. But just so you know, this is something that has taken place a couple of years now. It's the 9/11 Day of Service. Layton City has been very fortunate. We've had a lot of great people who have participated in the years past, and we have several projects again this year. They're going to be done throughout the entire city. I would highly recommend everyone to get out and participate. It's a great way to kind of really bond and understand and network with other folks in our community. And you can find out about those projects if you go on to the Just Serve website. There's a list of them, and you can sign up right then, or you can go to the event. But the one thing I want to remind everyone to make sure you do is actually sign the paper, let them know that you're there, and they'll keep track of the hours. And in this case, some of the projects that are going to be taking place happens to be some fireland mitigation up on our east bench. And as long as we keep track of those man hours, we can then turn those into FEMA, and that gives us credit to be able to help us should we have an event or basically receive some federal funding. So it's very valuable for all of us to kind of help, because while we have a fantastic staff that works their guts out, literally, this is an opportunity for us to help them as well. So anyway, good job, Councilman Morris, for reminding me of that. Hopefully that's it now. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go on then to item number 3 of our agenda, which is a proclamation that I'll be reading. And again, it's in regard to Constitution Week. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties and the foundation of our freedom, embodies the principles of government in a citizen-centered republic dedicated to rules by law. And whereas the Constitution of the United States of America is an inspiring document that is a beacon of hope for freedom and other nations, many of which desire to replicate not only its thought-provoking words, but also its effective accomplishments which have changed the world's history for the better. And whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the event and framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by a gathering of dedicated, spirited, and inspired citizens referred to as the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting, necessary, and proper to accord official recognition and honor of this magnificent document and its memorial anniversary, and to the patriotic celebration which it commemorates, keeping its importance utmost in our hearts, minds, and whereas Public Law 915 establishes the issuing of the proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Joy Petro, Mayor of Layton City, along with the Layton City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties. I have set my hand and caused this seal of my office to affix on the 7th day of September, 2023. We do have an actual proclamation here that we will be putting in our display case out here. And certainly maybe if you're scouts, I can't think of a better meeting you could be at tonight, but perhaps afterwards we can gain a picture with you and holding this document so that we can commemorate how important it is that the youth is here tonight and hopefully will carry on these liberties for us. So with that, I'll now turn the time over to our citizens. This is the time of our meeting where we like to hear comments from our citizens, providing it's additional items that are not necessarily on our agenda items. So if there's anything that you'd like to address the council, please come up to either podium here, state your name and address for the record, and just be aware that we are listening. We are taking your information. We might not engage, we won't engage in a debate, but certainly we do want to hear any comments that you have at this time.
Hello, thank you for letting me come up here and speak my mind. Chris Layton, I live at 3280 Boulder Drive. We just moved back here to Layton about 4 years ago. Mayor and Dave, we grew up in the same neighborhood. My maiden name's Alvy.
Oh, I know exactly what home you grew up in.
You know me. Anyway, so I'm just coming to ask if there is any kind of plans in place, what they are and when they will be coming forward for work on Valley View Drive. Since, with all the construction that's happened, and then since they've opened up the top there, that, you know, up by 193, we have so much bike traffic, so many walkers, so many there, and the road is full of potholes. It's just a mess. And I just wondered if there's anything in the books. If there's not, how can we get it on the books? We just need some help up there. But Valley View Drive is a mess. And the buses, when the buses come, the kids are waiting on the side of the road. When it's snowy, the kids are in the road waiting for the buses. It's just we need some attention up there. And like I said, with the construction that's just completed, we've got a lot more traffic and a lot more bike traffic and pedestrians as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
All these people here with you.
They're welcome to.
I was not planning on this. I was just going to come and sit right next to her. I'm Wendy Kirstensen. I live in Layton Ridge neighborhood, and how do I say this? The road is really, really bumpy. When we've noticed, like she said, a lot of bikers. It seems like maybe since '89 has changed. And they've routed the bikes on the frontage road. And then they have the access to continue down into South Weber. It's really hard. The bikes definitely have discovered that's the route. And it's really hard. There's so many joggers. I'm one of them. I feel like I take my life into my own hand when I jog out my own door. Mm-hmm. And walkers. My husband walks a lot too. And I don't know, maybe I have the biggest complaint with the potholes. Maybe too much information, but I've recently, a few months ago, had a double mastectomy. And for many months, it was so painful to ride on the east side of the road. And so we became English drivers. We drove on the left side of the road, on the west side of the road, where it has been dug out, and it's just beautiful. We'd love it to be on the other side too, even if it's just that. I don't know if the residents would need to help pay for curbing and sidewalk. I don't know how everyone feels about that, but I'd love the road to be a little softer. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Melissa Bailey, and I live at 3210 East Jacob Circle. I live by these people, and I walk my dogs 5 days a week on Valley View, and it's a nightmare. It's so bad now, and there's no sidewalks except for just in a small area on the west side, and there's no bike path, like they're saying no marked bike path. I have 4 children. There's nowhere for when they're waiting for the bus. They're in the road. They're on the side of the road. There's nowhere for them to stand safely. When it snows, I usually wait down with them in my Suburban until the bus comes because there's nowhere for them to stand. And I'm worried they're gonna get hit by a car. And also Boulder Drive, we live up Boulder Drive and it's super, super dangerous. It gets really, really icy in the winter and people slide through that stop sign all the time and that's where the kids wait for the bus. And so I'm just super worried that a kid's gonna get taken out, like something bad's gonna really happen. And so that's why I wait with the kids. A lot of the other moms whose kids I wait with, they're at work. And so I'm the designated waiter. And it's just really bad. Like there's holes all in the road. When I'm walking with the dogs, like I'm worried that I'm gonna sprain my ankle, break my leg. Like there's a lot of elderly people that walk along that road. The bikers are out of control. Like they're not even like following behind each other. A lot of times they're just like riding side by side. And so when I've been driving down the road, I'll have to drive my car into the other lane to get around them. So it's just a really dangerous situation. And I've talked to many, many people that live where we live, and they feel the same way. Unfortunately, not very many of us came to state our concerns, but we're just hoping the city will look into that. We realize it costs a lot of money, but I think it's for safety reasons. I think it's worth the city's time to look into it. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
All right, I'm Eric Tate. I live on Layton Ridge Drive as well. I just want to echo everyone's statement about Valley View Drive. It's horrendous. It was my sentiment that UDOT should pay for it, all their trucks to, fix up 89. We're driving on that road every single day. I thought they were going to fix it. So when the road was done, we called them. They said, no, it's Layton City's responsibility. We called Layton City, but there was no plans to repave that section. So that's kind of why we're here. It's really bad right now. There's actually no room for the bikers that they've funneled onto our road to go. I'm pretty sure someone's going to get hit because there's a lot of blind corners there and people are speeding down that road, that's for sure. So I just agree with everyone here. I think something needs to be done. I would go back to UDOT and get the money from them. But.
Thank you.
My name's Mike Latham, and I just think Valley View's been forgotten about. Seems like people are running amok there. Everybody on Valley View has done their own little asphalt, put mailboxes, trees, bushes, done their own thing, but the way to solve the problem is get a sidewalk and a curb and gutter and repave it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Switch it up.
Angela Ellsworth, 1786 North, 3300 East. I live up Boulder Drive as well. We moved there 3 years ago, and I grew up in this area pretty much most of my life, and there's kind of a reason that it's forgotten. It's like a little hidden treasure I didn't even know it existed. And, Fernwood is my backyard, and it's like this peace haven up there. But that road is true. And what Melissa says, she really is the neighborhood mom, and she watches out for all of our kids. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I can't stay at the bus stop, but she does. And it's true, they just need a sidewalk to be able to walk on and to be able, it's kind of terrifying as a parent, actually, to leave to go to school and have my own child walk and hope that he makes it safely to school. So I would really love a sidewalk for my kids.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I appreciate all your comments and definitely will take this into consideration. I will say that, yes, this is a very, very costly improvement to that area, and it will require some taking of property in order to do that. So it's one of those things that we've talked about, but we haven't come to a conclusion yet. So I'm sure we can, have further discussion. But just so you know, it will impact several people along that road. But I understand the safety factor here that you're speaking about. So thank you. Anything else?
Well, yeah, I was just going to echo that. the concerns are valid, the city's aware of them, and I was just thinking in my mind, I think other than 2700 West, which is a major transportation corridor that's being connected to the West Davis corridor, in the last 2 years, there has not been a street in Layton City that's been talked about more frequently or in more detail than Valley View. So it has not been forgotten. The solution to it is complicated, as the mayor referenced. The city staff, at the direction of the council, the mayor, have looked at multiple designs to try to accommodate, balance the safety, which we recognize is an issue for both bikers and walkers, but also to be sensitive to private property rights. And as the mayor indicated, we typically, in Layton, we don't want to begin, at least from staff's perspective, to start the process of building roads that are designed substandard in terms of the cross sections, the widths, the travel lane widths, et cetera, the separations and so forth. The topography along Valley View is extremely difficult. On the west side of the road, it drops off significantly, so you have reverse grade driveways that are there. And if you widen the road, those get exacerbated significantly. Some of those driveways go from already being almost intolerable to 16, 17, 18%, and your driveway would basically stop at your front door. So for all intents and purposes, in a winter event, you're not going to be able to get into your house or get out of your house unless somebody has plowed that driveway. Again, these are not excuses, they're just realities. On the other side, the elevation, the topography climbs, right? So for those good people who live on the west side, or the east side of the road, if you widen the road to a certain extent, then suddenly everybody has retaining walls in front of their house, and there's a significant encroachment into their property. And as the mayor touched on, there are, under a standard cross-section design, there are probably 4 homes along there that will have to be taken. They'll have to be purchased by the city and the people. And so it's we don't know what the answer is. We continue to look at it. In fact, we just had a discussion with staff last week about this very issue. Again, let's keep looking to find that balance. We understand that the potholes and stuff are an issue that can be addressed and should be addressed now, and we're working on a plan to be able to do that. But the long-term solution is delicate. We're not trying to avoid it. It's a reality. The expense is what it is, but it's just trying to balance those properties. Do we go and, as a city, again, this is a decision the council takes seriously, do we go and say to 4 homeowners along Valley View and say, we're going to take your home in order to put a sidewalk in? It isn't necessary to accommodate the traffic volumes, because the width of the current road will actually accommodate the traffic volumes from an engineering perspective. Some people don't believe it, but that's actually true. And so again, it's a delicate balance as an elected official to say, do we take a citizen's home to put in a sidewalk? And so I just wanted to inform you about that. We're continuing to look at it, and our hope is that in the very short time frame, we'll be able to take care of some of these aesthetic issues and some of these nuisance issues and make the road as it is. The longer term solution may be down the road a little bit, but there's certainly some things we can do now, and the staff is actively working on that to come up with a plan. So thank you for bringing that to our attention and reminding us about that. It's good to have people actually come and articulate the specific things that they're concerned about and where you live at relative to that. So feel free to call the staff anytime. You can call myself, Alex Jensen, the city manager. You can call into the main office. Mr. Steve Jackson's here, our city engineer, and Steve's been the main one that's been working on this for, like I say, a couple of years. We've got more revisions or design alternatives you can shake a stick at in the files, but they're complicated. And again, the mayor and council have been vigilant about this and concerned about this. So I don't mean to belabor it, but thank you for being here, and we're happy to answer any questions at any point in time, and we'll always be direct with you. We'll be honest with you about where we're at and what we think we can do. And but we know it's an issue, so thank you. I'm not in control of the meeting. You'd have to work through the mayor, see what she would allow.
Typically, we don't, but go ahead, because this is we want to make sure we address the issue, but you still need to come up to the mic again.
I wish my husband was here. He has a master's in city planning, so he'd understand that more. I didn't quite understand and I want to be able to bring that back and understand it. Why would we take people's homes because of the grade of the street? It's like higher up or something. We'd have to take their homes to be able to put in a sidewalk.
Yes.
Okay.
So with the width of the road, again, because and Steve could jump in as well, but not to belabor it, Mary, you can shut me down anytime, but the road is this wide, and then to the west, it immediately drops off to 89, right? So you've got a downward slope, reverse grade driveways, which under our current standards would never be allowed to be built, but they were back in the day that they were built along there. They have these reverse grade driveways. And so on the east side, the ground goes up the mountain. On the west side, it drops off. So if you widen that, you're going to steepen, both on the east and the west, the angles of approach to your house. So in order to do that, we have standards with regard, based out of functionality, as to how steep a sidewalk can be to provide safe access to your home. Well, when you try to put the same amount of sidewalk in a narrower area, then instead of a slope maybe being like this, it becomes like this. So in some cases, the new driveways, the new drive approach would have to go right to the front of your door like this, which makes it impossible. The functionality of your driveway and your access to your house goes away. And people don't believe that, but we've designed it. We've looked at every house. We have looked at every house along there and with GIS and with survey data. And so we're pretty comfortable in that assessment. There are others that are some variation of that. There would be many, many homes, in fact, very few homes, as I recall, along Valley View would not be impacted in some way, shape, or form. But there are 3, 4, 5 from memory that the change in the elevation would be such that, for all intents and purposes, they could not access their home. And it's not just about the mailboxes and the shrubs. We're aware of all that encroachment that's taken place. So that's the challenge, is how can we look at a cross-section that can hopefully provide some more safety for walkers and bikers, especially for the children, and then and still not create a tremendous swath of destruction and impact, to people who actually live on Valley View Drive. And it's usually we're pretty good at solving those. We've had pretty good luck. We have excellent staff. Our engineering staff is very, very good, very creative. But this one is a conundrum at this point in time, but we continue to work on it. So that's the issue. We'd be delighted to meet with any of you, if you want to come in as a group or something, and we could sit down and show you the designs and walk through those if you have specific issues. Anyway, help's on the way in the form of it is. I'm not sure at this point in time, but like I say, it's a priority for the council, and as I say, we talk about this issue all the time because we realize it's an issue, and we don't. Editorial comment. I apologize for taking so much time, but generally, this is not the way that Layton City. Most of our roads we don't allow to get in this kind of a situation, right? We just don't. We have a higher standard than that, and so we recognize this, and we want to get it. We want to get it addressed. Another issue that is at play up there is you have underground utilities that need to be assessed: water lines, sewer lines, storm drain lines, those kind of things. We don't want to reconstruct a brand new road over the top of utilities that are going to expire in 5 years. Then we've wasted a lot of the taxpayers' money. So we're trying to do some analysis of the life expectancy of some of those utilities, and so when we're in doing the road in whatever that shape that takes, not for potholes, but for something more structurally, then we're not wasting taxpayer dollars because we're just going to dig up in 3 years what we just put down today. So it's a complicated kind of a A to Z examination of it, and it takes time. But anyway, thank you for participation. Your questions are great. And
okay. Thank you, Mr. Jensen. I will tell you, I have full confidence in this council. I mean, they definitely are willing to vet things out, and they are very physically responsible with the city's money. So I know that once they feel good about a decision on this, we'll move forward. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to our consent items. Just for the educational portion of this meeting for the scouts there. Consent items are items that can be considered by the council in one singular motion. So we might have 4 or 5 different topics, but we only need to vote once. So with that, we're going to go on to item number A, and our city attorney, Mr. Gary Crane, is going to present that information to the council.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We have before you ordinance 23-12, and it is an adjustment in our on-street parking ordinance. And the purpose of the change is our ordinance enforcement officers came in the other day, and a little while ago, and they indicated that enforcement sometimes of vehicles on streets, vehicles, trailers, boats, that type of thing on the streets is a very difficult matter. And we looked at the ordinance to try and figure out how we could make it a little easier for them, but at the same time be fair to citizens who are loading, unloading, who have it there for a legitimate reason. And one of the things we noticed was that the 24-hour limitation was causing a problem. If you're immediately loading or unloading, people seem to understand that there's a time period involved. But what we're having in the actual wording, as it currently was before we actually made this change, is individuals that would know that they could park there for 24 hours and then move it to another location for 24 hours and move it to another location for 24 hours. So we were defeating the purpose of trying to get these off the street when they shouldn't be there. At the same time, allowing people to be there enough time to be able to do the things that people do. So we recommend taking out the 24-hour period, which would allow them to be able to enforce. They'd be able to go talk to people, find out what they're doing with the item, the vehicle, the trailer on the street, and then be able to assess whether or not they were loading or legitimately loading or unloading, to be able to give a reasonable period of time. Sometimes it's not always 24 hours. Sometimes you got it there for a couple of days if you're getting ready to go on a trip as a family. And so they wanted the flexibility to be able to do that. So that's what this ordinance does, is it provides that flexibility if you pass it this evening.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions regarding this item? I know we had a healthy discussion in the work meeting, but certainly if there's any additional questions, please feel free to ask now.
Okay. I don't have a question, just understanding that this issue, removing this one line, from the 24-hour requirement for them to move, just allows, like you said, flexibility for our enforcement officers to do what they need to do. So I think it's a good suggestion, a good change to the ordinance that just allows people to operate the way that we all normally operate without being, having fear of somebody calling on you or you having to remove something or being cited or whatnot. So I think it's a good suggestion.
Thank you. Okay, seeing that there's no other comments, let's go ahead and go on to item number B, and that item is going to be presented by Mr. Steve Jackson.
Mayor, Council, thank you for the time tonight. Before you is Resolution 2342. It's a postponement of improvements agreement between Layton City and the Ute and Gail Knowlton Trust for property on Lot 2 of the Knowlton two-lot subdivision located approximately 2417 North Fairfield Road. Currently on the west side of Fairfield Road between Antelope Drive and Love Lane, there is no sidewalk currently installed. The family trust is separating or splitting their parcel to ag land and then an existing home, and so the city has requested that they sign this postponement agreement allowing for a requirement that sidewalk be installed at a future date along that portion of the existing home. No current development is taking place, but we wanted to take an opportunity to make sure that we had a mechanism in place to get that sidewalk installed at a future time. So they've agreed to sign this postponement of improvements agreement, and so staff recommends that the council adopt resolution 2342 authorizing the city manager to execute the postponement of improvements agreements between Layton City and the Ute and Gail Knowlton Trust dated November 29th, 1991 for the postponement of sidewalk installation. Is there any questions I can answer on that?
May I? Steve, are there any other postponement agreements along that road?
Not to my knowledge. There's some research that needs to happen. A lot of times these come up as the parcels kind of split or trade hands and things like that, but I don't know of any others on this property. So.
Steve, can you, just so that maybe the residents don't feel like this is us just kind of allowing developers not to do what they're supposed to, can you just speak to how many of these postponement agreements we typically enter into?
So this is the first one that I've done in 16 years since I've been here. I'm not a fan of them, but there are occasions when they are necessary.
And this one in particular, we don't have a mechanism where they're actually developing, they're just splitting the parcel, and it's an existing home there. And so typically, if they're built before that requirement was in place, sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't, but we did want to take advantage of the fact that we could get this in place, and then if any future development occurs on that ag land, they would also be required to install that sidewalk, so.
Okay. I just have a process question.
Yeah.
So the resolution states that this postponement is until a certain date that the council, identifies. And I know that when we do a lot of other things, we have to actually set a particular date. In this instance, would there be some type of leeway? So let's say, for example, the council decides on January 1st of 2025, that's the date. Something happens, there's 75%, development, and we decide that January 1 is that date. Is there some type of grace period or a certain amount of time that the residents would have before they would have to put that in? Like, is that something that's built in, or is that just something that we would handle when it comes up?
Yeah, we would handle that when it comes up. The city would be flexible. A lot of times when these occur, it would be the city saying, hey, we're going to put this whole sidewalk in, or, there's a separate project and this is the cost. If you'd like to participate, we would actually probably hire a contractor and just do the whole section at once. But if not, we would say, hey, this is the time you need to do it, and then we would give them a time frame to find a contractor and take care of it themselves. So. Yeah.
Councilman Robert, did you have a question?
Yeah, a couple points. Just to be clear, for clarification, the other side of the road has full sidewalk, the whole length that we're talking about, right?
The east side of the road has full sidewalk.
And thank you, because as an owner of an agriculture property, I can see how this could really be an undue burden that really would be pointless, because it would be a sidewalk that wouldn't lead anywhere on either side. So I think it's a good move. So thank you to staff.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? If not, council, I'll bring it back to you to make a motion regarding our consent items.
I move that we approve ordinance 23-12 for the parking restriction amendments and resolution 23-42 for the postponement of improvements dealing with the Ute and Gail Knowlton Trust.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the consent items as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We have one more item on our agenda here, which is a public hearing. And I believe Chad Wilkinson is going to present this information to it. It's regarding a easement vacation on Main, sorry. Yeah, I was going to say. I was like, what?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a proposed easement vacation. The properties that are the subject of this easement vacation are outlined in yellow. There's a property here, a larger property that's currently being developed as the Towns on Main project. Warhead Properties are the owner of that. And then another property owned by the Smaleys, Steve and Shannon Smaley, that is just to the east. This is the approximate location of the easement. This is the Smaley property, and then the Warhead Towns on Main property. That orange line represents the approximate location of that easement. The reason that easement exists is that in the past, the sewer for that entire neighborhood up there ran down this property. This was before the connection of Avalon and Main Street, before that intersection existed. When that intersection was completed, that sewer was rerouted down to the intersection of Avalon and Main within that public street. Subsequently, that sewer line has been removed from that easement, and the developers of the Towns on Main project would like to have that easement vacated so they can have that land unencumbered. We've worked with our engineering division. There's no need for that easement to exist anymore. State law requires, because this is a municipal utility easement, that we do go through a public hearing process for the council to give approval of this by ordinance. We are recommending approval of this proposed easement vacation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, do you have any questions on this vacation? Sorry, I gotta make fun when I can.
Mayor, I have a question. Chad, can you go back one, please? Is that, So when you go from off of Main Street there, that dark rectangle right with the intersection, is that a sign?
Yes, there's a billboard.
Is that going to be, what's the story of that sign, or
As part of the development, there's essentially a phased access plan for this property. So there will be an expiration of the lease for that eventually. And the developer's plan is to remove that sign and then use that for access. So you'll see, in the meantime, there'll be an access here on the north, close to the bread store. They'll come through, but eventually that will be, and then there's another access through the property. That they've got an apartment portion of the property here to the east. But so eventually there will be an access that will line up with the street, close to Bayview Park there, and there'll be a fully signalized intersection there. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. If anyone in the audience wishes to speak regarding this particular item, then you're welcome to come up to the podium. Okay, seeing that there's none, I'll bring it back to council. Council, I need a motion to close the public hearing and take action regarding the easement.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve, or that we close the public hearing and that we approve ordinance 2318, the easement vacation for the towns on Main.
Okay. It's been moved in second that we approve the ordinance 23-18. I can do a unanimous vote, can I, on this? Or do I need to do roll call since it's a public hearing? Roll call?
Roll call.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll go ahead and go through a roll call then regarding the ordinance 23-18. I'll start down here with Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
Okay. Ms. Smith Edmondson.
Aye.
Sorry, I shouldn't have looked at you. Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Bloxham.
Yes.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. And that was our last item on our agenda, unless there's any unfinished business here. Is there? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Thank you. Okay, we want to thank everyone for being here tonight. We appreciate the comments. And like I said, I think it'd be great if we have our proclamation photo with our scouts here. So thank you.